Welcome back to more of Final Fantasy XII, the Zodiac Age. It's time to head into the XII Uplands, an area that didn't have its own music track in the original game. It actually reused the music of Giza Plains, but in Zodiac it gained its own theme, so let's hear that. I've never actually heard it before, so this will be a first for me. Of course, we're greeted by Coerls immediately. This area looks a lot more vibrant and green than I remember it. I kind of remember this area being very dark and purplish. Now, where are we? Because Realm of the Elder Dream. So, I only wish it wasn't so far. Varn echoes what a lot of people are thinking. So there is, there's a rare game here that requires you to chain 10 serpents. And I believe you can make sure you do that by setting everyone to the everyone's gambits to faux Earth Weak attack, and only that. In fact, I might actually just right now temporarily turn off gambit because I kind of want to see that rare game. So this is sort of a big savannah-like area, and in the original version of this game, the Uplands were kind of infamous for the fact that there were very few chests here, and most chests in these areas only had a 10% chance of spawning. They definitely changed that in this version. Oh great, there's a Coerl there. Not going to have Ash do anything because I don't want her to accidentally attack the Coerls with her attacks. Whoa boy, Bellwyvern. Okay. Isn't there like a dragon called Bell something in FF10? The one that's a zombie? But yeah, some of the chests in the vanilla version could contain very useful accessories, but most of the time they only contain gil. There's some rivers here with flowing water. I must have played this originally on a really, really dark TV, because I do not remember this place being so vibrant. Apologies for the very weird battling right now, but it just, I kind of wanted to spawn that rare game. I'll have to look up where it shows up, but it's a lot easier to do things either this way or just set everyone to only attack Earth Weak enemies with their gambits. Because otherwise those Coerls will kill the chain. Guess there's no harm in Ash healing though. Now, I remember this place having a few interesting aspects to it. Namely, it's weird, there's a hunt here that's actually mandatory. It doesn't look like it is, but, well, it is. And I think the rare game around here is actually close to the water. I just noticed that trap disappeared, so... Oh, those things can inflict sap on you with basic attacks. That's not good. And I think the rare game actually does spawn around here, but you have to not kill the lizards, because the lizards will ruin the chain. Feral Croc. Choking gas trap. Now everybody is sapped. Just get to a better location here so I can heal everyone. Oh! Perfect, there's a save crystal. Does touching a save crystal ruin the chain? I don't know. Arcadians have a very distinctive style of clothing. We'll be seeing more of that later on. So yeah, we have this hunt bill for that's kind of drawn a little bit crudely. Warning, this is not an official bill and will not be listed in the clan primer. So yeah, kind of an unofficial hunt, but it's actually the only hunt besides the first one that's required. Yeah, that scribble makes it look like some kind of beast with many heads or something, but I guess we'll find out. So basically, you drew a bad hunt build that was rejected, and things escalated, and a whole lot of people got hurt. So yeah, this key is actually something that we need to progress. Question mark, the hunt begins. But I'm actually hunting for a rare game right now, so I'm going to go ahead and just look up exactly where that is. Oh, yikes, it requires a 22 chain, not a 10 chain. Okay, so the area down here is going to be called the Garden of Life Circle, and that apparently has a lot of serpents that we'll be able to chain. In fact, it even spawns here too. So let's just go for these serpents. And I suppose while we're fighting these, one thing that I want to say is, so far I'm actually not the biggest fan of this music. All of the new music in Zodiac Age was composed by the same person, as I think we actually did lose that chain from touching that save crystal, damn it. But yeah, as the rest of the game. So, that is good to know, but I don't know, there's just something about this theme that doesn't sound particularly great. I was also thinking about what I was saying in the last parts about turn-based RPGs and action RPGs and that kind of thing. It sort of goes in cycles, kind of similarly to how there are often sort of cycles in trends of people preferring linear games versus open games. I suppose Ash can get on the action by whacking with her staff. Because I remember in the time when New Super Mario Bros. Was actually considered a pretty good and novel thing. And then everyone got sick of them because they did too many of them, and then people wanted open Mario games, and then, did somebody touch a... No, somebody just got tail speared. I thought they touched a trap. And then Odyssey came out, and now everyone wants open stuff, but, I don't know, maybe there'll be another swing back. It's just always a thing where, a thing with trends... This is totally unrelated, but it actually reminded me of how, trends like happened when it came to fairy tale adaptation movies, because firstly Disney fairy tale films like The Little Mermaid were really popular, and then Shrek came out, and then all of a sudden everyone wanted sort of parody fairy tales, and then people got sick of the constant bombardment of parody fairy tales, and then Tangled came out, and then people actually started liking fairy tales played straight again. And then with like all the backlash over Frozen, I think parody fairy tales, or at least parodies of that, have become more in vogue. Well, that actually was a trap. It's just always interesting how things develop in cycles like this. I have the, what's it called? The accessory that increases experience gained on Varn. You need to move between 2 screens in order to respawn enemies, apparently. Okay, I have the 22 chain. There's a lizard here. When I go near the pond, there it is. This is, weirdly enough, a Tarrasque, which is like one of the highest level Dungeons & Dragons enemies, but it's not really all that particularly good. In fact, Ash has, like, steal and poach. I wonder if I could try poaching this thing if it goes onto low health. Varn's still blocking things, even without the blocking accessory equipped, and without, Did I just heal it with Bolthia? I may have. So I saw HP numbers, green HP numbers on that thing. Yeah, if we get it to low health, I might be able to attempt poach. Wow, yeah, this thing hits pretty hard. The rare game is no joke around this area. Can she get the Curaga in fast enough? Apparently not, because I guess Varn went down. Raise, maybe? Okay, good, and now we need to get a Curaga in, or Cura, and hopefully it doesn't attack Ash while she's using, Okay, good, the Cura is going off. So I believe once it starts glowing, then it should be vulnerable to... there's probably no use dispelling right now. It should be vulnerable to poach. Okay, yeah, it's going orange. Who has poach here? Yeah, let's... It's not dead. Let's turn Varn's gambits off. And now let's maybe even have Ash attempts to... No, she doesn't even have poach yet. So I guess her gambit should go off as well, and Bolthia's probably should as well, just so I can keep trying to poach. Yeah, there you go. Winning a pebble. Yeah, so some things aren't really worth particularly good loot if you poach them, but other things are worth extremely good loot if you poach them, so often if you're grinding or doing things like that, farming for items, it's generally worthwhile to try poaching HP critical enemies. Some enemies give some insanely good things, also Marlborough Overkings also count towards the chain for summoning the Tarask. I don't know if they're actually considered, like, undead or anything. They might. I think she has the Ice Staff equipped right now. We do have Esuna, thankfully. Maybe switch to controlling Balthier so that... So that, hopefully Ash's, yeah, they're not really as strong as they used to be. I do like the fact that these things appeared in a different area with a... I think that they were a higher level in the... No, I think they're actually roughly equal level to this in the sewers. So I guess, yeah, this is like the kind of level you're supposed to go there. The Esper in there is a rank 2 Esper, now that I remember, so... That's going to be probably a little harder. Weak to ice. Don't really have any ice bullets on Balthier, but Ash does have Blizzard and the ice buffing staff, so yeah, that's a lot of damage. See how much quicker the enemies go down when we have free range use a full party? This area is actually slightly reminding me of the Calm Lands from FF10 though. Also reminds me a little bit of what is it, the Arcalite, the something step, because I get confused because there's a step in this game as well. In fact, we might even be seeing that step relatively soon. But that area, the first, actually, big area in FF13, the one where your freedom actually gets pretty considerable, and it's like 70% of the way into the game. I don't know about, because looking up some more stuff about FF13 on the Final Fantasy Wiki, I have actually realized that I do like its battle system quite a lot, and I think its battle system is better than many people give it credit for. On the other hand, though, it would be an awkward game to possibly do a playthrough of because there are actually more hunts in that game than there are in this game, and there's like over 50, whereas there are 45 hunts in this game. And in this game, you have access to hunts from the beginning, whereas in 13, the hunts don't become accessible until, like I said, 70% of the way into the game. Like, you go through most of the game with pretty much pure story, almost no side content, and then suddenly a bajillion side contents open up to you, which, weirdly enough, is actually how FF10 was as well, but people just didn't complain about that one as much. Of course, there's... I've said that in some comment sections before, and then people link me to a video called 2 linear games, 2 different outcomes, and it's probably some pretentious think piece about why FF13 sucks and you should feel bad for liking it, and it's the death of RPGs, blah 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 blah. I don't know if I'd, if I went back to 13, if I would like it less, because I played it at a time when I actually was only just getting back into JRPGs. I hadn't really played a lot, for a while. It was one of the first games I got on PS3, actually. And the PS3 was, I got it, like many consoles in my life, I was a pretty late adopter of the PS3. Didn't get it until decently late into its lifespan, because there were just no games that I found particularly interesting on it. In fact, okay, I just realized, though, that maybe the Ice Sword isn't going to be that great, because it'll still be, I don't know, weak-ish. 55... I'm gonna try that on the Coeurls, I guess. Just for a little bit of variety on Balthier, but I don't know if it's actually gonna be doing a decent amount of damage to them. Yeah, like almost 1,500. It's like roughly on par with the gun. But yeah, it was one of the first games I got on PS3. The other one was Ratchet & Clank 2 Tools of Destruction. It's just called Tools of Destruction over here. For some reason, the PS3 Ratchet & Clank games, they had the subtitle Future in America, but not in Europe. Also, a few of the games have different names in different regions, and it's like I think the third game is just called Up Your Arsenal in the US, which is weird because that part only works in British English. So I don't know why it has that, but over here it's called Ratchet & Clank 3 Up Your Arsenal. And then Deadlocked is just called Gladiator over here, which I like Deadlocked better, obviously. It's not nearly as weird as Mario Kart. Was it Mario Kart Wii, where almost every vehicle has a different name in Europe and America, despite them using the same language? Like, I don't know why that's a thing. I think just Nintendo went through a phase where they actually started translating games separately in Europe and America. And that was why we got, a less memorable DJ Octavio in Splatoon, but mostly, Advance Wars Days of Rules, which has a... Vaughn, that's enough with the experience boosting accessory, thank you. Sorry about kind of going all over the place with tangents, but I don't really have a ton to say about this area in particular. It's just, I do kind of get why people might not like this part of the game. It's a lot of really large areas. You don't really have, like, with not a lot in them, and there isn't a ton to do here until, significantly later on. Because we don't even have any hunts available here right now, apart from the one mandatory one. But yeah, Advance Wars Days of Ruin, which, I personally prefer the, so you can't even enter these ruins. I think I personally prefer the European translation to the American one, just because the American one took a lot of liberties, and for some reason they liked that. When they did the same thing with some other games, they didn't like that. I guess that's another one of those swingbacks, you know, in terms of how much people like localization changes and how much they don't. Like in Days of Ruin, everyone loved the localization changes. Like the whole Mr. Bear thing, not a thing in Japanese or Europe at all. And here's yet another area with an injured person and a save point. Oh, are you the, wow, someone as young as you using Forthwith. Are you the son? Yeah, I think you are. If I wait here, one of the servants will come look for me. Ah, high-class privileges. But it's just, you know what, since... Oh, there are coels here, I'll still use the ice sword. I was going to go back to the gun, and then I realized the sword actually does do solid damage to these guys. I think I'll focus on attacking them rather than... Or that could happen. Fran, could you please, not Barsh. Could you please cure that? Oh, wait, you're in Havesuna. That's annoying. Only 4 remedies, but I guess I can try this. Both these remedy laws are pretty good. Oh, they can use Cura and heal themselves for a pathetically tiny amount of HP. As you can tell by the fact that both of those are already dead. Oh, Barsh's Gambit's still off. Well, it's the return of that thing from earlier in the playthrough. Anyway, I went through like 5 layers of tangents or something then, but what was I getting back to? Oh yeah, about like 13 and stuff. Yeah, so I was talking about 13, then I was talking about my first experience with the PlayStation, then I was talking about Ratchet & Clank, then I was talking about different names of Ratchet & Clank games, and then I was talking about localization. Yeah, that was a weird thing of stuff, but I guess you've probably come to enjoy my various tangents by now. This is just kind of the kind of game, more of a casual playthrough where I can talk a bit more about just general things that are on my mind and the like. But okay, now's a good time to re-equip a gun on Balthier, because otherwise he can't do anything to that. I think that's the strongest gun he has. Should be. Stole a spiral incisor! Balthier has become an amateur dentist. That's great. But yeah, and then also about the possibility, like a long time ago I kind of considered doing a Final Fantasy XIII playthrough. I even have some 13 videos on this channel, namely me fighting an Animatoise at one point. Oh, nice damage there. I must be equipping a type of ammo these things are weak to. Guns do pretty insane damage when hitting weaknesses, and there's a lot of good ammo that has good elemental effects. Yeah, I want to take out the lizard before I take out the bell wyvern. I think Balthier should prioritize those things because he kills them very quickly. Yeah, 13 still has a pretty massive amount of controversy surrounding it, and if I ever did do it, I probably wouldn't play the sequels. I do think 13.2 improved upon the gameplay of 13 in a few ways, but it also was worse in a few other ways. It's always annoying when you've got a sequel that does that. But mostly, if any of you have seen that backloggery that I linked a while back, if you didn't, then I can link it at request in this video if you want. But, if any of you have seen that backloggery, then you'll know that I own Lightning Returns. I have not played it, and don't really have a lot of motivation to do so, because I haven't really heard great things about it, and I just don't really like the direction the story went in those games. And also I heard that they completely changed the character of the final boss in the... This is back to localization changes, but I mean, I remember that they weren't a particularly well-received character as a final boss anyway, from what I remember, but it's hard to talk about it without spoilers, but the English version seems to have made them a more generic villain with a more generic motivation for the type of character they are, whereas the Japanese version, well, one, it made them a bit nuanced, but at the same time, the Japanese version played much more heavily into lightning and hope shipping, which, is considerably less liked outside Japan because of the age gap. And it was still something that I personally never really saw. Like, if anything, I kind of saw Hope and Vanille, but then Vanille and Fang is practically canon, and I don't want to rob people of the closest thing to a canonical same-sex relationship in a Final Fantasy game. Though I don't know how much of that comes from the fact that Fang was originally a man. But yeah, there's actually quite a bit to 13's battle system that I think is actually a lot deeper than many people give it credit for. Though I still hate the fact that whenever you do a paradigm shift in battle, everyone has to waste time posing, unless you time it correctly to the point where you do it while everyone's in the air, and you can skip that animation. I'd recommend looking up speedruns of 13 if you're interested in seeing things, because speedruns do some interesting things with the game. More evidence that, wow, the servants are all the way down to P now. More evidence that the battle system is actually a lot deeper than many people give it credit for. But, like, at the same time, I was gonna go on this tangent about 13 for a while, but, like, at the same time, part of me is kind of glad at 13 being as polarizing as it is, because the fact that 13 was so hated in some circles actually drove people to Xenoblade and Persona, which are two games that I love and am glad to have more fans. And they were kind of like, oh, right, I guess I can talk to you now that we've found your son. Okay, I guess I'll go back through the Fon Coast way after I kill this thing. Balthier leveled up just as I was having fun using his gun skills. Okay, well now Penello's back, so it's going to be haste time again. The reason why I decided to go back via this direction is because I haven't explored this part of the map yet, so I kind of want to get that there. Even though there's probably going to be a map seller, or cartographer, map seller, eventually. Yeah, more of those Overkings. There's not a ton of enemy variety in this place. Well, I guess there's 4 basic enemies. There are the serpents, the frogs, the Malboros, and the Coeurls, but that's pretty much it. Though there are, I looked up the wiki, and it turns out there are 3, I think, fixed chests in this place that always contain spells in the Zodiac version. and one of them won't appear for me because it had regen, and regen is one of those, like, either-or chests, and I got it in an earlier area, and if you get it in an earlier area, then it despawns from, here. But there is one that is float, which, not the best, it just lets you go over traps. I remember float was a lot more useful in, was it, 8, where it makes you immune to Earth, and you had that double Minotaur boss that is pretty, much trivialized if, you have float up. FF8's a weird game as well. I can go into that too later on in this area, but I guess we can tell you we found your son. Oh, no, you're just going to be pretentious and think we've forgotten the bill. Okay, then. Okay, so there's 2 exits to this one, and I have a feeling they both come out in the same place, but I could be wrong about that. It looks like they both come out in the same place. More of these coerls. Okay, I think Blizzard will do more to them than her Fire will. Yeah, it definitely looks like it. I doubt Fire would be doing over 2,000. But yeah, 8 is also... I probably said this before, but I've played FF8 a while back. I played it on an emulator, and then I lost either the laptop or I lost the emulator. I was pretty much right at the end of Disc 1 when I lost the game. And so I haven't really been able to pick it up again, although apparently it did get like an HD re-release on a lot of consoles, including Switch. One of these days I might go back to it, but again, it's a strange game because it's apparently better if you don't, like, if you stay at a low level, because you can sort of, the main gimmick is like drawing spells off of enemies and then junctioning them to your stats to become stronger. Final Fantasy has, like, it's kind of funny because people often rag on it for doing different things and messing with stuff too much, but it has always been a series that experiments a lot, because 8 had a pretty crazy sort of battle system, then 2 had a very crazy battle system that could be exploited by just putting all the enemies to sleep or petrifying them and then smacking your own party for hours to improve their stats. But we're talking about 8 here. And yeah, because enemies leveled up with the player, so basically it was more advantageous to stay at a low level and then just draw a whole lot of spells to junction onto stats and improve your stats that way. Like, apparently the game actually gets really difficult if you actively try and level grind. And then there's also the Guardian Forces, or the summons in that game, and how they were kind of a plot point as well. I still think okay, FF10's summons were I almost called them Espers, but they're called different things in every game. Aeons, Espers, Eidolons, and as I've said before, in Japan they're always called Shokanju, or summoned beasts. It's just a term that loses a lot when it's translated literally. So it often gets many different localizations to it. But I do really like the way this game handles summons. I just love how you actually actively have to go out of your way to track them down in the world and fight them as optional bosses. Actually, Barsh can fix that sap himself. He has regen. And that can save time for Penelo to cure her instead, although she should probably be saving her MP for haste at this point. On the other hand, like, there have been times when I've considered playing 13 on the channel just because I might be one of the very, very few YouTubers who actually likes that game. But again, like, that could just get me kind of slaughtered in some circles. But on that note, it just reminds me of another thing that I've just been sort of thinking about. It's like, it just kind of says something about how sort of beloved a lot of the Final Fantasy games are. Oh, it looks like Fire does do about as much damage to the coils as Blizzard does. That, like, the moment that one comes out that's even not quite as good as the others, because I think, like, in every stretch of the imagination, 13 is not a bad game at all. It's it's like an 8 out of 10 game when everything else in the series is 9, or, well, not everything else in the series. There's a lot of, your mileage may vary there, but, like, you get the idea. In a series that has a lot of 9 or 10 out of 10 games, it's an 8 out of 10 game, and that, you know, comes across as really bad by the series standards. It kind of is like the way that I think of, for Zelda, the way that I think of, what is it again? Link's Awakening, for Phantom Hourglass, wow. Yeah, I don't like that game so much that its name completely slipped my mind. It's kind of like how I think about Phantom Hourglass, or, you know, Diamond and Pearl for Pokemon, maybe. Which is still, like, despite the fact that a lot of people hate Sword and Shield, Diamond and Pearl is still my least favorite main series games. Platinum is better, Platinum's a lot better. But, I don't like Diamond and Pearl. I have another tangent about that, but maybe I should save that till later. I don't want to get rid of all of my tangents in one episode. Just like, I've got surprisingly a lot to say about the idea of a remake of Diamond and Pearl, because its reception within the fan base is incredibly polarizing. As just a TLDR version of that planned tangent. Basically, you've got a lot of people who grew up with Diamond and Pearl, who absolutely adore the games, think they're flawless, and don't want them changed at all. And then you have another faction of people who straight up hates them, and really wants them to be changed a lot. And it's impossible, it's going to be impossible to satisfy both those groups, so we'll see how Game Freak, actually not Game Freak, I don't think Game Freak's in charge of that. We'll see how they handle that. But the other thing is that, like, even when they're straight up hating on an installment like Final Fantasy XIII, the Final Fantasy fanbase I've always found has never really been quite as hostile or elitist as a few other fan bases in video games. And I've been trying to think about why that is, but I honestly feel that it's simply because the Final Fantasy games have never been, well, for one, they're very mainstream. Like, they're not niche at all, and, like, many people play these games, a lot of people grew up with them, but a lot of casual gamers play them as well. But I think the other thing is that very few of the Final Fantasy games are very difficult. As far as JRPGs go, they're accessible to a lot of people, and usually you can pretty much pick up any of them and do quite well. Like, even in FF10, if you don't care about any of the crazy sphere optimization and stuff, you'll still be able to beat the main story decently fine. I mean, it's got a pretty tough final boss, and I'm talking about the actual final boss and not the one that's actually the final boss. Like, there's a fight that comes afterwards, but it's almost impossible to lose unless you intentionally petrify your own party. So I don't count that as the final boss, but what in the why are there so many save crystals around here? Oh, okay, so this is the road to the step. And it looks like it's totally blocked off, but I actually think there's a way through at this point in the game, but I think I'll get to that a bit later. Oh, whoop, whoop, almost up on the trap. The Lost Way. Makes sense, since this is the path that doesn't really lead to anything worthwhile out of all of the places here. Just barely short of a one-shot there. Okay, yeah, that's level 37. The enemies in here are giving a lot of experience, which is kind of crazy. I'm keeping Barsh in the party just because he's a little bit, I don't know, like lower level than most people. Oh yeah, that's what I was saying about the sort of the difficulty. I actually think there is a direct correlation between how hard a game is and how elitist and hostile its fan base can be. And it might also be part of the reason why a lot of the fighting game communities, like games that have high execution ceilings, a lot of those games can have very hostile communities that are very toxic to newcomers. I was hoping that would be one of the magic chests. I feel like I'd like to see somebody write a paper on, like, sort of toxicity in fandoms and which ones are more susceptible to it and which ones are more susceptible to elitism. Because I do think there's a direct correlation between the difficulty of a game and again, that aspect of its fan base. Because when you have a hard game, then people start using the fact the game is difficult and the fact that they're good at a difficult game as, I think it's also partly because, I thought we got disabled there. It's also partly because the games can become sort of exclusive clubs, and they get this whole thing of like, oh no, our exclusive club is becoming mainstream, and now it's not exclusive anymore. But I think it's also because there are, and I'm not saying everyone who enjoys or is good at hard games is like this, because from what I can tell, the Dark Souls fandom seems pretty friendly. I could be totally wrong about that, I've just got a very outsider perspective, but I don't really like, most of them just kind of make jokes about the game's difficulty and accept that new players are going to die a lot and they just like to, you know, have a laugh about it and enjoy themselves. But, when it comes to, I think I might as well just ignore these enemies and start just running around. We've seen a lot of this place anyway. Of course, we step on a Sten Needle trap. They're everywhere. And all the way back to the Garden of Life Circle, which I think is reasonably close to where we need to go anyway, and holy crap, this is a big area. But there are quite a lot of people, and I've noticed this in particular with Fire Emblem, with the Fire Emblem community, and also, I know there's at least one other community that oh, Shin Megami Tensei, mainline Shin Megami Tensei can also be like this. There are some people who play hard games and do well at them to give themselves a feeling of superiority. And they feel like because they're good at difficult games, it means that they're better than other people, and that they like to use that to lord over others and to essentially just kind of be bullies. It's almost like, part of me is wondering if that's why Chaos is so popular with it, among Shin Megami Tensei fans, is that the whole social Darwinist philosophy actually appeals to some of these people. And it's kind of a silly notion, because it's just a video game, you know. Being good at a video game doesn't mean that you're a superior person or anything like that, and you're like an enlightened mind or something. But some people, wow, Ash actually died, I didn't even notice. Some people like to do that, and I feel like that's why, like, sometimes difficult games foster that kind of attitude among players. And that's why sometimes, like, you've got to be very careful when you make a game hard, because on the one hand, it can be nice to give people a decent challenge, and overcoming a challenge like that is obviously, you know, a really, is very satisfying. And when a game is too easy, you can often feel, you know, not, I don't know, particularly gratifying to do well in. But then again, on the other hand, you've always got to strike that balance, because that combination of something being niche and hard, it lends itself to attracting those kind of people who just, again, like to think they're better than other people, and like to, and they play games not so much for the enjoyment, but they play the games so they can belittle other people who aren't as good at the game as they are. As sort of an, this is getting really, I don't know, kind of weird and kind of contentious, but almost as an excuse to victimize people in a way. You can tell I haven't had good experiences with elitism in certain fandoms, and in fact, like I, as many people are already aware, I distanced myself from the Fire Emblem community long before Awakening came out. Like, I was only just even tangential. That even makes sense in this context, but I barely even went to Serene's Forest even during the Japanese release of Awakening. Just only saw a couple of threads that were reacting to when the game first dropped and the reveal of Lucina existing. That was an interesting time, but like long before the whole waifuism began and all of that, yeah, the fan base was still pretty not a nice place to be in, and there were a lot of, like, new players who were, yeah. Anyway, I should probably stop, going into that, because if I were to say more, I would reveal some very contentious opinions that I don't really want to discuss publicly on YouTube. It's just that psychologically, I do feel like there has to be something about these games that attract that kind of culture. And basically the thing that I wanted to say was that Final Fantasy, to me, never really gave off that vibe. There we go, that's one of the spell chests, Blindger. That chest will always contain Blindger in Zodiac Age, and it will never respawn. So, there are 2 others, for me 1 other, because again I already have Regen, the other one is Float. Yeah, that got, I'm sorry if that got, maybe got a bit heavy, but... Yeah, you could write sort of essays on that thing. Now, is that gonna lead to the cave? Keep forgetting whether it's the cave place or the cave palace. I'm definitely getting Calmlands vibe from this place now. It looks kind of similar, and it fills a pretty similar role. Large open field, close to the... I wouldn't say we're close to the end of the game. I don't even know how far we are into the game, honestly. But there is a part in this game, like after this particular story arc, we get to a very weird point where we're very close to the end, and yet a ton of side quests open up. But at the same time, we're not like right at the end. I'll talk about that later, but yeah, that's gonna be the cave, whatever it's called. And I think there's like a boss immediately on entering there, so I'm not gonna do that for now, but I think I'll go back to a save point, and then I want to try something. Because I've actually heard that it is possible to get to the Cerobi step now, or you might only be able to do that after you complete the hunt in the cave area. Wait, after all of that killing of enemies around this whole area, we still only have just barely 200 license points in everyone? That's really... That's kind of shocking me, actually. But now that I think about it, I'm gonna take care of that early step thing next part, I think, because I feel like the next area is quite small, so it's probably gonna lend itself better to having some side areas in it. So I'll see you next time for that, if I can look up how to actually get there. I know it involves going to the Fawn Coast, hiring a Chocobo there, and taking the Chocobo all the way through the uplands. So I'll research into that, and then I'll see you next time. You know, actually, I just realized, I was thinking, okay, we're probably going to get something in the Sky Pirates Den, aren't we? And we did. What? Well, that's kind of sad. Rex. 500,000 clan points. Okay, now I'll see you all next time.